I'm Joe. Today on Next Level Bullshit, we take a look at the supposed dinosaur hoax. Kristen Aukler from Christians Against Dinosaurs released a series of videos where she attempts to debunk the idea of dinosaurs and suggests it's an elaborate hoax from money-hungry paleontologists.
I wanted to specifically talk about the aerodynamics of dinosaurs and the lies that these paleontologists have been feeding you for your entire lives in exchange for millions of dollars, a pat on the back by the liberally biased media, and big high five from all the feminists out there who want to kill babies and scream at their bodies, or whatever the heck they scream.
What the fuck? Is this satire?
Here, you're my paleontologist. Turn that into what it was before I ripped it apart.
I'm pretty sure that's just some smashed drywall. Putting it together would only create a flat board, not a skull. A lot of people are holding on to this as satire, like Jackal26 from AboveTopSecret.com, who basically called me an idiot for not digging enough. I too was really hoping this was satire, until this interview with Rahman.
Entertainment purposes, that you don't actually believe or hold the position that you're doing. You still maintain with me now that you actually do believe what you're saying you believe. Is that correct?
We
Okay.
get that question more than anything else, and at this point it's almost more offensive than anything. I mean,
Well, she might still be trying to do the whole Andy Kaufman thing, trying to find YouTube fame with satire and boobies. Except denying dinosaurs is a real thing. David Wozni wrote in an article titled Dinosaur Deception, state funding of organizations that promote the dinosaur concept should be considered strategic psychological warfare against a state that uses a Christian doctrinal basis for government, since the Christian Bible comes complete with the account of God's creation in the book of Genesis and genealogy of Jesus. Or this post from Mumsnet. I'm really concerned about dinosaurs, and I think something needs to be done. The science behind them is pretty flimsy, and I for one do not want my children being taught lies. Did you know that nobody had even heard of dinosaurs before the 1800s, when they were invented by curio-hungry Victorians? Nobody heard of bacteria before the 1870s, but I bet you still use antibacterial soap. There's even more YouTube videos like this discussing the subject, like Dave Johnson.
21st letter starts at 777. Do you see this? That is not the backbone of a dinosaur. You do know that, right? Let me explain to you what that is. Please look at this. Right here. Then look at this. Then look at this. Do you see an angle? Do you know why? Because it's nothing but a lead screw.
Okay. You get the point. There's a lot of these. Now to fully grok this turd, we have to go way back. No pun intended. Chang Qiu, a Chinese historian from 300 BC, mislabeled a fossil he found as a dragon bone, which some speculate as the start of the dragon mythology. Then in England, in 1676, a huge thigh bone was found. At the time, it was thought to have belonged to giants. Fun fact, because it looked like a scrotum, the name Scrotum humanum was assigned, briefly. In 1824, William Buckland described the first dinosaur as Megalosaurus bucklandi. Then came Sir Richard Owen, noticing similar features of the remains that included Megalosaurus, Iguanodon, and Heliosaurus. He presented Dinosauria as a separate taxonomic group in attempts to bolster arguments against the theory of evolution. Well, he actually inadvertently helped support evolution arguments. Fast forward a few years to the Great Dinosaur Rush, or also known as the Bone Wars. PBS produced an interesting 80-minute piece on the subject, which I highly recommend. Here we have a Steve Jobs versus Bill Gates-like battle in paleontology. The major difference, though, is both spent enormous fortunes to ruin each other. In the red corner, we have Othniel Charles Marsh. Marsh grew up the son of a struggling poor family in Lockport, New York. He had a turn of luck when his wealthy uncle, George Peabody, built the Peabody Museum of Natural History, placing Marsh as the head of the museum. He also received a sizable inheritance upon Peabody's death in 1869. Oh, he was also the professor of vertebrate paleontology at Yale University. Now in the blue corner, we have Edward Drinker Cope. Cope was born into a wealthy and influential Quaker family in Philadelphia. In 1864, he was already a member of the Academy of Natural Sciences, and soon after became a professor of zoology at Harvard. Yeah, do you see it? Yale versus Harvard. Now the two were responsible for some of the biggest discoveries of dinosaurs and igniting the public's passion for the large Jurassic beasts. 142 new species of dinosaurs were discovered and described, but today only 32 are valid. Those discoveries, however, did not come easy. The two battled it out across the Midwest, stealing fossils from one another, destroying fossils so the other couldn't examine them. There were even stories planted in the news about misclassifications and exorbitant prices paid for bones. Marsh suffered a huge hit from Cope, who had pointed out that Marsh put the wrong skull on a skeleton of an Apatosaurus and declared it a new genus, Brontosaurus. The news media at the time loved this. The political scandal was always popular. Now, there's a dinosaur scandal? These events happened at an important time for America. The theory of evolution was just published. The first dinosaur was assembled and put on display, and the federal government was handing out large amount of money for science. This turned religion on its head. Famously, Hillary Herbert, a fundamentalist Christian of Alabama, argued against the budget for the U.S. Geological Survey by using Marsh's work, Odontronites, some of Marsh's prized collections, for some good old science bashing. Birds with teeth! That's where your hard-earned money goes, folks, on some professor's silly birds with teeth. Well, funding was promptly removed. Paleontology took another hit in 1953 when the Piltdown Man was exposed as a forgery, consisting of the lower jawbone of an orangutan deliberately combined with the cranium of a fully developed modern human. These are some examples used by the Dinosaur Hoax people in an attempt to prove it's all a hoax. But wait, there's more. Dating methods of fossils are in question. Not just that, but the actual process of fossilization is being questioned. By idiots. Some of these idiots write, scientists used to be very impressed with the potential of radiometric for coming up with the absolutely reliable ages of some kinds of rocks. They do not feel that way anymore. That's a lie, but let's move on. Having had to deal with numerous calculated dates which are too young or too old compared with what they expected, scientists now admit that the process has many more uncertainties than they ever would have supposed in the early years. The public knows almost nothing about uncertainties in the dating of rocks. The impression that most people have received is that many rocks on Earth are extremely old and that the technology exists to make accurate measurements of these ages. Scientists have become more and more aware, however, that the measurements within the machines may tell us nothing about the actual age of the rock. These are some pretty gross distortions intended to confirm the bias of their captive audience. In reality, dating methods have been improved vastly. Radiometric dating has been carried out since 1905 when it was invented by Ernest Rutherford as a method by which one might determine the age of the Earth. In the centuries since then, the techniques have been greatly improved and expanded. Dating can now be performed on samples as small as a nanogram using a mass spectrometer. Radiometric dating is a technique used to date materials such as rocks or carbon, usually based on a comparison between the observed abundance of a naturally occurring radioactive isotope and its decay products, using known decay rates. The rate of decay for many radioactive isotopes has been measured and does not change over time. Thus, each radioactive isotope has been decaying at the same rate since it was formed, ticking along regularly like a clock. There's also relative dating. Basically, it looks at the surrounding rocks for a clue at the time frame. For example, the Grand Canyon has many layers called strata, where it's possible to determine the age of the fossil based on its relative position in the strata. And finally, we have paleomagnetism. Using radiometric dates and measurements of the ancient magnetic polarity in volcanic and sedimentary rock, geologists have been able to determine precisely when magnetic reversals occurred in the past. Combined observations of this type have led to the development of the geomagnetic polarity timescale. The GPTS is divided into periods of normal polarity and reversed polarity. Great! We got 3 methods, often combined to get very accurate ages of rocks and fossils. Good. Let's look at the next bit of madness. There are no fossils being formed today on a large scale like they did many years ago. When a fish dies, it doesn't sink to the bottom of the ocean to become a fossil. It merely decays and is eaten by other fish or animals. Even today, there is hardly a trace of the millions of buffalo that once existed, but were slaughtered all over the plains just a couple of generations ago. Some herds were big enough to cover a whole state. You idiot. It takes thousands of years for a fossil to form. And there will never be many, if any, fucking buffalo fossils because they were all slaughtered. I think what a lot of these people are missing is the very rare circumstances that have to occur for a fossil to be produced. All right, now let's get to the dinosaurs themselves. The enormous size of these dinosaurs and their diets have non-believers baffled. All right, sauropods were very successful land animals from about 145 million years ago and among the largest animals, some weighing as much as 80 tons and up to 115 feet from nose to tail. It would require 100,000 calories a day to sustain themselves, or, as Crazy Kristen pointed out, 1,000 pounds of food, which she says is impossible because you would need 2.5 square miles of foliage. Let's use hay as a comparison. It's not as dense as ancient plants, but it'll do. This field is full of 700-pound rolls of hay. There's 28,000 pounds of harvested, edible vegetation in this picture. Dino deniers want to convince you that's an impossible amount of vegetation because big numbers are big. But by today's standards, the average yield of hay per acre in good conditions is 4 tons annually, meaning you only need 45 acres to keep a really big sauropod happy all year. Let's quadruple that to 180 acres just to be safe, which is 0.28 square miles, not 2.5 square miles like Crazy Kristen claims. Not so impossible, huh? Also, the fossil record shows us that the Earth at the time was crazy fertile, with a high carbon dioxide level fueling a paradise of dense, fast-growing plant life. The dino deniers also want to try to convince you the size of the biggest dinosaurs would have been impossible. Dinosaur size was fueled by vegetation, as we said. It was an insanely fertile world, a massive, easy-to-get buffet for sauropods. Size of herbivore dinosaurs were also a form of self-defense, an evolutionary advantage, making them virtually immune to predators. Additionally, paleontologists know sauropods had nearly hollow vertebrae and a highly efficient aviary respiratory system for efficient oxygen conversion. That helps fast animals like birds be fast and slow animals like sauropods to be big, really big. There's an interesting paper on dinosaur biomechanics by Professor Alexander McNeil, which I suggest you check out. In the paper, he discusses such concepts as body mass, speed and maneuverability, and blood flow in long necks. Now, finally, the dino deniers are quick to call hoax on the molds of dinosaur bones. Yes, typically the exhibited models are put together by molds, not actual fossilized bones. There's actually a lot of really cool techniques that are utilized with computer scanners. If a real fossil is shown, it's usually behind very thick glass by itself, so you people don't get your grubby paws all over them. Ultimately, much of this comes back to the Bible, especially the first epistle to Timothy 6:20, which reads in the King James, "O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called." This is widely interpreted to be Paul telling Timothy to reject opposing arguments, as seen in the original Greek, not necessarily reject science or knowledge in the American Standard Translation. You see, at the time, Paul and Luke were battling it out. Marcion of Sinope favored Luke's teachings, not Paul's, and had a different outlook on early Christianity. Paul was actually warning Timothy to reject Marcion's supposed heresy, not to reject science or knowledge in general. Misconceptions, misinterpretations, fabrications, and crazy everywhere we look on this one. We think Kristen might be trying to find YouTube fame with an over-the-top mix of bumbled Andy Kaufman-styled satire and boobies. I seriously hope she's not serious. But her website calls for genuine worship and fellowship as if it's a real ministry. And screwing with people's faith is insanely fucked up next level bullshit. The rest of you dino deniers, you're dangerous. Science and new knowledge is what pushes us forward. You're also next level bullshit, but not as bad as Christians against dinosaurs. And there it is, episode 39. Our last episode on water fluoridation solidified my position as a shill. So, who do I collect the check from? Making Sense of Fluoride wrote, "Your video includes quite a bit of misinformation. I'll release a video if you don't already clear it up in your next video. It is clear you didn't read the newest IQ study. There was no correlation between IQ and fluoride. There, however, was a correlation between IQ and dental fluorosis. There was also no lowering of IQ at the levels of 1 parts per million. Dental fluorosis is caused by fluoride." We Are Awake wrote, "How much are you getting paid to do these anti-conspiracy videos? If you want your fluoride, buy it in the toothpaste. Don't push it on the rest of us." I'm pretty sure I said we should remove fluoride from the water, dude. Finish the video next time. Zodiac C wrote, "So, this douchebag is a medical researcher, objective truth seeker, or PR liar paid by industry to deceive anyone stupid enough to take anything he says at face value. I vote option 3. Again, I said we should remove fluoride. You should watch the video next time. So, what's today's total?
4.
Cool. Each time it reaches $100, I'll donate it to charity. This time, it was the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. Here's my confirmation, in memory of my granddad, Frank, who died of Alzheimer's a few years back. We're thinking of a literacy charity as our next donation and are open to suggestions from our viewers. Now, if you find a story that's bullshit worthy, post it to any social media site using hashtag NLBS. Or if you're really motivated, make me a video. If I like it, I'll feature you on our next episode. You can also email me anytime at joe@nextlevelbullshit.com. You can follow me on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, and watch all our shows on nextlevelbullshit.com. And don't forget to go to thenlbs.spreadshirt.com to get shirts and other cool shit. Until next time, if you're considering some alternative spirituality, stay away from Guru Gurmeet Ram Rahim Singh in India, where over 200 followers cut off their testicles thinking it would bring them closer to God. No.